Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum. It's 8 o'clock here in Charleston, South Carolina. That's Eastern Standard Time. And we have no snow. Do you have snow where you are? I think that there are some folks in our listening audience, viewing audience, who have had their fair share of all the snow that they want to see for the rest of their life. We got some flurries. They tell me I never see snow. I've been in the South for the last 20 whatever years, and in all that time I've never seen a drop of snow. I have seen pollen in the middle of the winter dancing along the top of grass in the morning, along the side of the road sometimes, things like that, but never have I seen any snow. And I'm going to keep that attitude. Thank you very much. We're glad that you're here. This is the last, I think it's the last Sunday in January 2016. I say that because we're recording these things and people, sometimes you say stuff and they'll think you're crazy, but in January 2016, that wasn't a crazy thing to say. That's the kind of thing that was going on. We want you to be comfortable with us. We want you to know what's going on. You know what the BibleForum.net is all about because that's where you're watching this, or you have gone to the YouTube that's connected to it. Either way, you understand about BibleForum.net. I wrote this week on the counseling blog, TriBiblicalCounseling.net. I wrote what I consider to be a significant article having to do, I can't even remember what it was about. It was so significant. Yeah, I don't know, I'll come up with it. My problem is I looked down and I saw that over at livinggodly.net I had written a significant article on why Christians are so spiritually weak. And it just threw the other one right out of my head. I can't remember what that one is. Over at the BibleForum.net, there's a blog, When Words Mean Nothing, Anything is Possible. I hope you've signed up for some of these so that when I write them, they just come to you. When Words Mean Nothing is something we're going to be talking about tonight a little bit later on. I do want to remind you again about Disney's My Circle. This is like a little Roku box in your house that's tied in with your router and all of that sort of thing so that you can control what children are being able to access and the time in which they can do it on their phones, their iPods, pads, whatever it is that they're using. Want you to be able to do that if that's an issue. We do have the email that goes out every week. This is what it looked like this week. On the back, there were a couple of articles, a couple of pictures. There's a picture there of Donald Trump. There's also a picture of Mystery Babylon. And we're going to be talking about these. The articles this week on the email a little bit lengthier than they normally are. Try to get you up to speed. Hope you've signed up for the Bible Institute. Some folks have done that. We are working through the details with some other folks. It seems that you need to have a Gmail account, and that Gmail account needs to have access to a Google Plus account. You don't have to use your Gmail account for anything you don't want to use it for. The Google Plus account, you don't have to fill in any of the information they ask you to fill in. You just keep clicking OK, and you get through it. At least you have it there. Then when you sign up for the Bible Institute, I can put your email address in a box and it automatically sends you an email with a link to that particular video. Nobody else can see that video but the people who get that email. If you do not have a Gmail account, I'm not sure you get that email. It tells me that you don't have one, and it shows a whole string of numbers, about 25 numbers instead of your email address. I'm not sure what that means. If you have signed up, you do not have a Gmail account, but you have access to the video. Anyway, I'd appreciate you letting me know. Maybe we don't really have to do the Gmail, Google thing, but it says in the instructions that that's the only way this will work. It's YouTube, and YouTube is telling me what to do. Talking about YouTube, you can go to BibleForum.net, and there's a link to the Bible Institute there, or you can go over to the Bible Institute of Charleston.org, and you can see that there is a sample, an introductory video that tells you how this all works and what it's about. But beginning this week, there's a sample. If you go to links, I think it is, across the top, you get only the link. You'll see one, and it's about, 10 or 15 minutes of a piece of the lesson on Christology, the doctrine of Christ. And I chose a section that I don't develop in the Christology segment. It gets developed in the soteriology segment, the doctrine of salvation. But it is a very controversial subject. I put it in there for two reasons. One was I wanted you to see the level at which we're operating here, not to frighten you, but to show you that this is not Sunday school, that you will be learning some things here that are valuable and important, and you will have the tools afterwards to continue your own education. At least you'll know what these terms are about. You would have heard them, saw them. Often you don't get this stuff in church. And the second thing is to alert you to the fact that this debate, this issue is raging in the church, and there's all kinds of tentacles reaching out in different directions, and kind of help you understand what's going on a little bit. And then later on, when we get to the doctrine of salvation, of course, we'll develop it. But those are developments on the Bible Institute website. I want you to go there this week. This is the last Sunday in January of 2016. We have just seen the storm of the century as it has blown up the East Coast, up the mountain range, accumulations of snow, high winds, airports shut down, buses, railroads, just about everything you can think of is under about 2 feet of snow all the way up the line. Folks out on the Jersey shore, and I'm sure the Maryland shore and the New York Bay and so forth, got a lot of wind and water. I saw water in some of the towns along the southern part of New Jersey and up along the coast there with looked like 2-3 feet of water. They didn't need that, but apparently we don't have as much control over life and circumstances as we thought we did. Maybe it's time we thought more about praying than anything else that we thought was important. The political scene is getting more fired up. We're getting closer and closer to election time. We'll start a week from, was it Tuesday? A week from Tuesday, Wednesday. In Iowa, they're going to have their caucuses. Maybe Hillary will get indicted before then. We're not too sure. 15 or 20 Republicans may find themselves on the short end after the New Hampshire and the Iowa voting is done. Dick Morris said this week that only 2 Republican candidates will be on the stump after March 15th. The way that everything is organized, all the different places, the states that are going to have their primaries by that time will have established the number of representative, number of people that delegates. The number of delegates are going to be situated in such a way that only 2 guys are going to be able to be in there at that point. Nobody thinks that Bernie Sanders can get much votes outside of Iowa and New Hampshire, maybe a couple other more liberal states, but it's certainly not going to be a runaway. Hillary is probably not going to be able to do this once people start thinking about her and they start hearing what other Democrats are saying and how this is all sifting out. She may be dead in the water. And I'm sure Joe Biden is lurking in the shadows. We hear some of that now, and his donors may be really lining up. We don't know. This is all becoming very interesting. Donald Trump went to Liberty University this week, that conservative Christian university started by Dr. Jerry Falwell 2 dozen decades ago, whenever it was. They received him the same way they received Glenn Beck. They received him as a fellow Christian. He got an honorary doctorate. The president, Jerry Jr., spoke of him as a brother in Christ. And it begs the question, why do these people do this? Why does Liberty University drag every Tom, Dick, and Mary into their auditorium and pretend these people are Christians? It just is an amazing thing to me. I wrote a blog this week entitled When Words Mean Nothing, Then Anything is Possible. And you can read it right there at thebibleforum.net. But we'll be talking about it a little bit later on in the show. Speaking of Donald Trump, did you see Sarah Palin? Sarah Palin endorsed him this past week. Donald said later on he was surprised at how long her speech went. He didn't really expect that, although she said some nice things and it was worthwhile and this and that and the other. Sarah Palin, is a committed Christian lady from Alaska, was governor of Alaska, ran as vice presidential candidate with Jim McCain. Were you shocked? Were you surprised at her potty mouth? Here she is on national television, standing up in front of God and everybody, and she's just using vile, filthy language and laughing about it. What is that? Why do Christians think they have to get down in the dirt in order to be credible? Or is that just normal for her? You do know, if you watch the show at all, pay any attention to me, and some would argue that you shouldn't do that, but if you do, you know that Sarah has been anointed by God to become somebody in government, to take over the mandate of government. Not alone, but along with others. Rick Warren, for example, he was given that same mandate or that same blessing from the same outfit of Christians, so-called Christians, who are going around doing this, anointed by an apostle, no less. An apostle who laid hands on her, prophesied over her in the name of God when she was running for governor of Alaska. Well, he wasn't really one of the original 12 apostles, you understand that. But this is the new apostolic reformation we're talking about here. And under the new apostolic reformation, there are a bunch of these apostles running around. Some are a little bit higher up than others. They have a hierarchy of structure and so forth. But you knew all about that. You've been hearing all about the new apostolic reformation. You've been hearing about the 7 mountains mandate. Your pastor in your church, he keeps you up to speed on this so that you don't get sucked into the vortex on this thing. You're getting this, right? No. People aren't talking about this. These are people who believe. They are convinced, they say, by Scripture, that Jesus cannot return to this earth because it is so evil. He is too holy for that. He cannot come back here until the earth is conquered. So much for pre-dispensational philosophy and a pre-tribulation rapture. These people, and we'll back it up, Christians in general, have to conquer the world for Jesus. Then Jesus can come back. Hence the new apostolic reformation. They have outlined the 7 mountains of society. They intend to take control. They claim that we need to do that. Christians do that. Take control of these 7 main areas of life, and government is one of them. That's the reason that Sarah Palin didn't just evaporate into thin air once the McCain ticket didn't make it. She's been around for the last 7 years, reality shows and this and that and the other, but she kind of keeps in there. And she jumped on the Donald's bandwagon because this gave her the bully pulpit. And she's there. She's doing God's work, potty mouth and all. Speaking of global government, are you paying attention? The markets are dropping. Our market stalled toward the end of last week. It seemed to be going down, and then it kind of leveled out a little bit, gave some indication toward the end of the week that maybe this descent has ended. I don't think so, but there it is. The investors in the country around the world are scared. Our stock market has lost upwards of 8 to 10% value. They've lost, in some cases, more than that of their investments. And that's only if they were involved in conservative investments. If you have your money in oil development, fracking, things of that nature, you can kiss it goodbye. See, all of this is stimulated by Saudi Arabia. They want to stop us from becoming oil independent. And we can be. And in the last 5 years or so, we've heard a lot of conversation in that regard. And then they found out this fracking thing works, and they've been going around. And I remember up in Dakotas. In fact, we had a fellow who would call us on the show from there. And they were developing all of this, and we were going to be oil independent within the next couple of years. And Saudi Arabia, about 2 years ago, started lowering the price of their oil. And that's why the stock market is coming unglued. They don't want us to be independent of them. And so they've got their oil down. I don't know where it is today. It's down below $30. They're expecting it to go down into the teens at some point. But the banks in this country that were backing this oil exploration and development are sitting on billions of dollars of loans that are probably not going to get paid off. It's very similar to the subprime debacle of 2007. And that doesn't factor in what's going on over in Western Europe and in China and in Brazil and in Argentina and a host of other countries. These countries are not doing as well as we are. And I think there's going to be some very real changes occur in terms of global wealth in the coming months. There's also a move to do away with your passwords. How many passwords do you have? I remember when I kept track of my passwords on a little 3x5 card. How about you? And then I had to subscribe to a website that would do it for me. Trying to think what the name of it is. I've got it. Oh, RoboForm. I subscribe to something called RoboForm, and it keeps track of my email, all of my passwords, because these people started saying you can't use that password. You use that too many places. You can't use the same password for everything. And then they would come back around and say, no, that one won't work. You have to put capital letters. You have to put numbers. You can't have a this. Next thing you know, I've got 50 of these things. What about you? Well, the world is into this on a level much larger than I, probably much larger than you are. And so there is a great move, apparently. I didn't know about it till this week, but the word is that this is a very real possibility. They're looking at biometric passwords. Well, it's not really a password. They're looking at the biometrics and saying that's where we're headed in terms of access to your stuff. Can you say mark of the beast? I mean, how did these Old Testament prophets know so much about end times? It's just amazing. They must have really been smart people. I mean, the computer wasn't around then. They didn't even know about digital information. And yet there it was saying that knowledge shall increase and men shall run to and fro. And then here's this biometric coding system at the end of the age, and we're already there. Speaking of end times, what do you know about Mystery Babylon the Great? You know, the woman that's riding that beast in the book of Revelation, the kings who dominate the earth at the end of the age. Who or what is that beast? And who is this she, this woman who's riding on him? And why? This has always been kind of a Sunday school lesson, a Bible study, an academic exercise. It's becoming real. We actually have names and places to put to this. We have scenarios and situations that are clearly lined up behind that 2,000, 4,000-year-old prophecy. We'll look at it a little bit later on. Are you watching the promos for the new TV series that starts tomorrow night? I subscribe to a website called religionnews.com, and you get the feeling that religionnews.com is a liberal religious outlet. I thought it was Roman Catholic because they really push that often, and it it's red in color, and there's they got a lot about the Pope and different things. No, it's not like that at all. But this news service likes to keep people informed about all things religious. Only these people are not religious at all. And you don't know that till you start. Well, who are they? You go to the bottom about. What's this about? And you start reading some of this stuff. Anyway, they do reviews of TV shows and movies and other kinds of things. And they have the same pattern with each one of them. They tell you what is it, how does it work, and that sort of thing. And under the paragraph heading, the premise in about 100 words, they describe this particular TV series. In the beginning, the angel Lucifer was cast out of heaven and condemned to rule hell for all of eternity. Not true. Until, that is, he decided to take a vacation from hell. He's not in hell. When he gets there, he's not going to be the ruler, and he's not going to get a vacation. This is blasphemy. But that's the way this new TV show opens up. Every episode of Lucifer is opening up with this concept. And it's a series loosely based on the biblical character, but also on a character created by Neil Gaiman and later developed by Mike Carey for a comic book for the publishers of DC Comics under their Vertigo imprint. His name is Lucifer Morningstar, played by a fellow named Tom Ellis, a charming anti-hero bored with hell, abdicates his throne and flees to Los Angeles. Now, I can think of a lot of places to go once I get out of hell, and Los Angeles isn't necessarily one of them. But he goes to Los Angeles, where he opens an upscale nightclub called Lux. Isn't it appropriate the devil would open a nightclub? Do you know how many Christians I've heard over the years? There's nothing wrong with nightclub. The world knows, and the Christians are living, what? A fairy tale existence? It says through a series of unhappy events, he's introduced to Detective Chloe Dancer, played by Lauren Germain, or German, ends up serving as her crime-fighting sidekick. Another paragraph under this review, as they use all the time, is how many episodes until this gets good? And then they begin to explain it. Well, in this case, they say that depends on what you mean by good. It's certainly fun. Religion news service. It's certainly fun, campy, with a devilishly handsome leading man, a man who is appealing, compelling, interesting. People like him. But they go on to say if you're waiting for the show to delve headlong into head-splitting philosophy of whatever the comic version is, you might be waiting, well, an eternity. Is it worth your time, they ask? And their answer is, why not? The series may not have the brilliance of the comic book, but it's highly entertaining. And isn't that what it's all about? And it's always good to be reminded that our interpretations of biblical characters can stand some reimagining. How's that? Here's a review of a blasphemous TV series set to come onto your TV, if you have cable, I suppose. I don't know what channel it's supposed to come on. Written and published by a website that characterizes itself as objective and non-sectarian. Clearly positioned as a legitimate voice for Christianity. But look at the staff. The staff are connected with all sorts of colleges, universities, schools of journalism, and the like, headed up by a young lady by the name of Heidi Thompson. Don't know Heidi Thompson? Heidi has also worked for PICO National Network. I don't know what PICO is, P-I-C-O. Apparently it's a faith-based community organizing network. You know what community organizers do? She's also worked with the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and she worked with MoveOn.org. Can you say George Soros? No justice, no peace. You can say these words. This is the Religion News Service. And they're pushing Lucifer. Heidi used to be the chief marketing officer for Sojourners. You know Sojourners? We talked about them. The guy that started it and is kind of embodies it is a fellow by the name of Jim Wallace, Reverend Jim Wallace. Sojourners advertises that they, quote, seek to inspire hope and build a movement to transform individuals, communities, the church, and the world. Their stated vision is a future in which Christians put their faith into action in the passionate pursuit of evangelism. No. Social justice. Peace, the peace that passes all understanding. No. Environmental stewardship. Working in partnership with people of other perspectives for the common good of communities, families, and individuals. Does all that sound biblical to you? Do any Bible verses come to mind? Or is it really earthbound? More compatible with, say, I don't know, the Great Tribulation? We articulate that vision, we convene and mobilize constituencies and build alliances for effective advocacy, they say. This is the man liberals turn to when they want an evangelical. When they want an evangelical to stand up and be their guy, it's Wallace they turn to. Jim Wallace stands for just about every religious, political, and social ideal and program you can imagine, and at the same time maintaining the image of a mainstream Christian. He's the mainstream Christian in the room. And you people are just crazy. Lucifer, a hero. Did you ever think you would live long enough to see it?